I really want to tell you the wondrous fact that this is the age where people are finally going to figure out how our minds work. And it's something that we've been working on forever, for thousands of years. All the philosophers since Plato have all wondered how we worked and tried to think about that. And like if you look at all the philosophers, like Rene Descartes said, "I think, therefore I am." Hume, or what is it, Kant said, an inquiry into human understanding. If you think about it, just read the titles of their books. They're all about the mind, how we work. That's the biggest mystery of all, I think. I mean, it's a mystery about physics and matter and everything, but how the mind works is a real enduring mystery, something that we care about ourselves. I know it's kind of narcissistic, really, but it's also true. It's not just narcissistic, because intelligence in our minds are incredibly powerful. In fact, it's been said, I want just you to consider this, the statement that intelligence is the most powerful phenomenon in the whole universe. Okay, the whole universe. So that's the claim, that it's more important, more powerful than supernova, black holes, all those things, gravity. And I think it's actually plausible. We have to decide what intelligence means, but can't you imagine that if intelligent beings persist in the world for a long period of time, 1 million years, 1 billion years, small in the span of the universe, that intelligence might would be influencing the way the whole universe works, the way moving stars around, terraforming planets, building Dyson spheres. Intelligent beings, given enough time, they would be the most important force influencing the things that happen in the universe. Yeah, I think if you look around, you would see the effect of that intelligence. Okay, so that's sort of the scope or the stakes. If we can understand this process and enlarge it, make intelligence all that it could be, that's the biggest event ever in not just human history, but the life of the planet, and I'm suggesting now even the life of the solar system and the universe. So it's a big thing, and so I want to talk about the big things and grandiose things, and at the same time I don't want to be grandiose and I don't want to be arrogant and hubristic. After all, we're Canadians, right? We're Canadians. I'm a Canadian, not my whole life, but now I'm Canadian. And anyway, I think it's really important not to be hubristic, not to be arrogant. You've got to try to see the truth as clearly as you can, and to be hubristic makes that really difficult. And yet, at the same time, we have to see what important things are happening and what important roles we might play in them. So I'm claiming that intelligence is really important. So far, that's all I've claimed. Now I want to claim that roughly now is when it's going to happen. Roughly now is when we're going to figure out how intelligence works. And then I'll go on to claim that it's going to happen roughly here in Canada. Or it might happen, it is happening here in Canada, so we're Canada's at the forefront. Doesn't mean we're going to be where it happens, but we could be where it happens. There's no reason why we shouldn't be. We're as much in the forefront as anybody. And then I can go on and be really arrogant and claim that right here, the University of Alberta is maybe the most promising place where it might occur. Okay, so let me get to that. Well, that's sort of the larger reinforcement learning and AI group behind me. With us, there's 10 principal investigators. It's the approach to understand intelligence based on reinforcement learning. Reinforcement learning is just a kind of learning that's very naturalistic, much like a person or an animal would do. It interacts with the world, it tries to get things that feel good and avoid things that feel bad. Okay? It's just an obvious idea, and it's almost surprising it hasn't been, well, it's been adapted. It's called reinforcement learning, and it's by some quirk of fate, Edmonton, University of Alberta, ended up being the world's leading place in reinforcement And for those of us that are working primarily on it, like these 10 principal investigators listed here, these 10 principal investigators are thinking reinforcement learning is the most promising approach to AI. So all of those guys, including myself, I'm thinking this is the most promising approach to AI, and then just clearly, objectively, reinforcement learning is the world leader in it. You'll find no other university anywhere in the world with 10 principal investigators working on reinforcement learning. Okay, so you put those two things together, we're thinking this is the most promising leading approach to AI, and U of A is clearly the leader in this approach to AI. So I have to believe this arrogant, hubristic thing that we are the leading place in the most promising approach to the most powerful phenomenon in the universe. Okay, so I want to laugh at it, and I often don't say it out loud, but I have to believe that in just putting together these facts. Now, you don't have to believe me. You don't have to believe that reinforcement learning is the most promising approach. I would expect you to be not hubristic, and you should be withholding judgment. You should be saying, maybe, I don't know, there's many I presume there's many approaches. This is one of them. And yeah, so that's where we are. Next step. I'm saying it's happening now. When I say now, I don't mean today. I don't mean tomorrow. I don't even mean this year. I mean it follows from Moore's law. So Moore's law looks something like this. So this is Moore's law, this graph, and we see on the y-axis we see years, and on the x-axis we see year. On the y-axis we see computer power per dollar, more strictly calculations per second per $1,000. So if you look at each one of these data points is a computer that was available in that year. And so the year came out, and how many calculations per second we could do. Okay? And so, you can see the graph is going up, but so you might think, oh, well, that means computation is increasing. Cheap computation is increasing, but it's much, much more than that, because this axis, this y-axis, is a logarithmic scale. So like, so this point is 10 to the 5th, and then this next tick mark is 10 to the 6th. Okay, and so each of these tick marks is, well, I guess there's 10 of them, so it's every other one. This would be 10 to the 6th, and this is 10 to the 10th. So each tick mark is increased by a factor of 10. So if this was a straight line, that would be going up, actually it's going up a factor of 10 approximately every 5 years. Okay? So that's an exponential or geometric increase. And so Moore's law, some people would say Moore's law proper is just this limited few decades when that has to do with the number of transistors you can fit on a chip. But there's this more general phenomenon of exponentially increasing computational power per dollar, which goes on much longer than those few decades. And so I was kind of, I like to call this Moore's law because why should we have two names? The important one is the larger phenomenon. So we're not doing Moore's law proper anymore because we're not squeezing more transistors, not just squeezing more transistors on the chip. We're getting more computation per dollar by adding GPUs and other things, 3-dimension, eventually it'll be quantum computing. One way or another, we find a way to get another factor of 10 computer power increase every 5 years. And this has happened. Well, World War II is about here. So it's definitely happened since World War II, and maybe slightly increasing. It's slightly curving up. That means we're slightly faster than exponential. Okay, but that's almost a detail. The fact is, it's going up exponentially, factor 10 every 5 years, and maybe even before World War II, when there weren't computers per se, but just other ways of calculating, like pencil and paper, behind here. Okay. So this has gone on, anyway, 80 or 100 years, and as far as we can tell, it's going to keep going on in the future. This graph isn't entirely up to date, but we've kept at least this trend since right up till today, and there's every sign that it will continue in this way. Okay, so computation is increasing. Well, it's the astounding thing is not the factor of 10 in 10 years, but in 5 years, excuse me, but that this has happened, you know, for let's say 100 years. 100 years would be 20 factors of 10. Okay, 20 factors of 10. How big is that? What is it? It's 20 factors of 10 of 6 factors of 10 is a million. So it's a million times 100. Okay, it's sort of unimaginable. Okay, and it really has happened this way. I've been working in the field for maybe 45 years, and I've seen what, 9 factors of 10. And it just that it keeps happening. It means everything having to do with computation is cheaper, more plentiful, more important. And so if we look at all the sciences today, they are all dramatically influenced by the availability of computer power. You know, even like biology is transformed. You wouldn't think of just biology, how that's going to be changed by computers, but it is, because it's with computer power, we're understanding DNA, we sequence DNA, and we now have used extensive computation to figure out how proteins fold up. Everything's been changed. Physics has changed because we can simulate the physical systems much more thoroughly. Really, all the fields, and I want to think that also the humanities are being transformed. I mean, in some sense, what we are talking about is something very humanistic. We are trying to understand ourselves, understand our minds. This is like the central objective of the humanities. Understand our minds and our place in the world. One of the central things for the humanities. Well, not the only thing by any means, but it is very much a transformation of the humanities as well. Okay, so I'm trying to thread this narrow path between arrogant, which I don't want to be, and exaggerating, which I don't want to be too. But I want to state what's true, and I want us to recognize what's true and have that enter into our thoughts. You know, I think of it as thinking from first principles. So from first principles, I'm trying to tell you that, or trying to suggest to you that this thing is amazing, understanding intelligence is amazing, and it's great. So when is it going to happen? Well, this trend is why it will be happening sometime in these few decades. Like, you know, people guess when it would be, but the guess, that conservative, reasonable guess that I like is that there's a 50-50 chance that it will happen by 2040. Now, when I say it will happen, there isn't really going to be one thing. It'll happen a bit gradually, but you don't need to define it more precisely, because all of the measures that you're going to want to measure it by will all be passed in some succession. When will it happen? So 2040 is the 50% chance before, 50% chance after. Sort of a common estimate. It's been my estimate for about a decade. Other people, the classic predictions are that 2030 will be the time when the computer power available for $1,000 will be sufficient to generate, to make a machine that has the same number of computations as the brain does. Okay? So that's just looking at the hardware. When would we have enough computer power? And it's rough. We might be off by a factor of 10. What's a factor of 10 between friends, right? It's just 5 more years, right? So maybe if you're off by estimating how much computation the brain is doing with a gram of brain material, if we're off by a factor of 10, we have to wait another 5 years, or maybe it's 5 years earlier. Okay, so that's the sense in which it's happening roughly now. And I think I've already suggested why it's happening roughly here in Canada and maybe at the U of A. Anyway, I do believe the U of A has every right to say it could, we are it's as likely to happen here as anywhere. Okay, so I'm not saying it's probably going to happen here. And so if you took all the places, our probability, its probability of being here is as good as the probability of any other place. It's still going to be greatly less than half. And it's just a good thing, because I don't want it on our shoulders to have to make this thing. It's going to happen in one of the places throughout the world. So many, not only the universities, but all the companies are investing enormous amounts of money in it. You guys know about ChatGPT and all the public furor that's arisen around that. There's so much excitement, there's so much investment. Okay, so the next statement really is there's a lot of silly fear, in my opinion. I like to view it as silly fear because it's unjustified and it's a new thing. I mean, there's always been an undercurrent of unease about understanding ourselves. At the same time, it's widely recognized as a goal, as something we want to do, but also unease about it because, well, really, it's because what will happen when we understand ourselves? What will happen when we can make ourselves much more intelligent? We can create machines that are much more intelligent than ordinary people. So obviously this will bring change. Change is always scares some people, many people. It will change our jobs, it will change what we do with our lives, what we work at, what we play at. Yeah, but it's, I think you can't walk away from the fact that this has been the goal of civilization, of scholars and thinkers and our scientists and engineers forever. So I guess my summary statement is that this is what we are. We are the animal that builds tools and that and then is changed by the tools that we build. We are not the animal that stayed the same. We are the animal that continued to change and embraced change and became more important because of that. So I understand there's fear. I think it's a silly fear. It's becoming less silly because it may have really bad outcomes. Just the fear may cause bad outcomes. Yeah. Okay. So, but I do personally think it's silly, and we should not have fear. We should be paying attention. We shouldn't have fear. Is that too hard of a thing to say? Can I tell you we should be paying attention? This is a very big event. It's going to change lots of things, and at the same time saying you don't have to be afraid of it. You can embrace it. You can enjoy it. You can be part of it. Is that too hard of a message? Is it too subtle to say that it could be good and yet transformational at the same time? Doesn't seem too hard to me. Of course, I spend my life trying to separate what's true and what's not true, and trying to find out how to make what algorithms will make intelligence. And I'm always looking at subtle distinctions and trying to square the circle and figure out when two different ideas seem contradictory, how we can resolve that. I don't think I'm asking too much when I ask you and the world to see what we are and not to run counter to it. Okay, so one way of saying that is that, why am I positive about change? One of the fundamental reasons I'm positive about change is that I see our life, our civilization, the whole world civilization, it has the dominant operating factor in it is cooperation. That people are powerful because we are the animal that cooperates with each other. And so, I mean, just like every day, maybe you have a job, you go to work, you get paid, you produce something, maybe you produce software, and somehow you can you get food delivered to your table or to your grocery store, and you can buy it, and you can get shelter. You know a very small amount about the world. You couldn't probably survive if it was just you, but because of our civilization and we cooperate with each other, these things come to exist, the computers and the tables and the universities, and these are all evidence of our cooperation. Now, you may be thinking, oh, we are not very cooperative. We are always trying to foil each other. We have wars, and we have conflict, which is certainly true. But overall, the conflict is the exception, and we are winning to the extent that we cooperate. Even when we have wars, I think you're all thinking these wars are great sadnesses. They are great disappointments. They are a failure of us. When we should be cooperating, and the wars are really not doing anyone any good. They're just causing great pain and loss of life. So they are the exceptions, and by and large, our society wants to avoid them and tries to avoid them. We are just imperfectly, we are not perfectly cooperative, but we are primarily cooperative, and it's cooperativity that gives us our power and our strength. Okay, and just to finish the thought, I think that it's actually logical, sensible, rational to cooperate. It's irrational to have a war. And I think there's every reason to think that if we have super intelligent beings, or if we become more intelligent, we will not become more warlike. We will become more peaceful. People say we will be smart enough to avoid the cycles that lead us to war and to conflict, and to be very inefficient in our activities. Okay, so that's what, I guess I haven't said the first thing, which is, what is intelligence? I'm sort of relying on you to say to understand what I mean when I say intelligence. What do we mean by intelligence? Forget AGI, forget artificial general intelligence, and artificial intelligence. Let's just go to intelligence. What does intelligence mean? Intelligence means it's the computational part of the ability to achieve goals. The computational part, like it's not the ability to achieve goals because you're stronger than the other guy, or you have better sensors. It's if you're using your computations to get to achieve your goals. So some people, so intelligence, intelligence is both involves accumulation of knowledge and the use of knowledge, and the having of knowledge. And so then there is room for a different point of view. At one point of view, consider these 2 points of view. Intelligence is having a lot of knowledge, or intelligence is the ability to acquire more knowledge. Okay, so I want to say intelligence is, so there's just a word. Who cares about a word? Words are not important at all. Okay, but we're talking to each other. We're using words, so we have to be clear about what we mean by them. Okay, so we have to decide what we want to refer to when we say to intelligence. So, for example, I would say Wikipedia knows a lot, and you can read a lot of facts in it. And this will be also true of the large language models, ChatGPT. They know a lot, but they can't acquire more knowledge. And the knowledge that they have is not knowledge that they created, it's knowledge which people wrote down on the internet, and then they're able to spout. And so knowledge is not just, or intelligence is not just the ability to get more knowledge by learning, it's also the ability to get more knowledge by thinking. So if you're given some knowledge about the world, then you can think and put together the bits of knowledge you have and construct more knowledge. And so that also counts as productively generating, creating knowledge. And so I think intelligence is those things, all this productive aspect, and not the having aspect. And that's just a way to use the word. It's the way I would like to use it. I'd like to encourage you to think that that's the most common sense way to use it. That just knowing a lot doesn't really make you intelligent. You might have gotten it just from having been given to you. And then it follows that ChatGPT, for example, which cannot acquire any more knowledge or even really tell if the knowledge that it's been given is correct, does in that sense is not intelligent. So those who think that that intelligence is about knowing a lot will often phrase it as, people are intelligent, and so if you can mimic people, then you must be intelligent. And so I want to reject that, which is, in fact, almost a rejection of the Turing test. You guys have covered the Turing test? Okay, no, so don't. I mean, it's a fine thing, but it's about saying you're intelligent if you can mimic, if you can pretend you're a person successfully and fool other people. Okay, so again, it's defining intelligence as mimicking people. We were thinking ChatGPT is intelligent. Those who think that want to use the word that way are saying, well, yeah, it can mimic a person, so it must be intelligent because people are intelligent. That's almost our definition of what it means. It's because they don't have another definition. They don't have the definition I gave you, which is that. What was that definition? I said, intelligence is the computational part of the ability to achieve goals. So the achieving goals is the key thing. Yeah, ChatGPT. Does it have any goals? Well, maybe you don't know. Maybe you haven't looked at it carefully. But maybe you've heard that ChatGPT is basically like autocomplete. Autocomplete on steroids. You're typing your email and it's trying to guess the next word. So what ChatGPT does is it then guesses the next word, and then it puts that word in there, and it guesses the word that comes after that. And it keeps going. And so it's just trying to mimic the word orders that people have used and that has appeared on the internet, on whatever sources it's trained on. So it's just absolutely true that it has no goal. It's trying to guess what word it is going to come, and it makes its guess, and it appears, and it goes on to finish the paragraph or the dialogue item. But it has there's no sense in which it has a goal. It's not trying to achieve anything. It's never disappointed by something that happens. It never is never surprised by something that happens. You could say things that a person would say are not true. There's no meaning to it at all. Its truth or its value has no meaning to it. Machines can have a sense of value. And let me just jump to a tiny demo of a machine that has a goal. I think it's late in this talk. Yeah, this is where I'm interested. This is an old system. Is it moving? Here we go. Okay, so this is a system with a goal. Simple system. It's like a maze. It's trying to go from start. When it reaches the goal at G, it gets a reward. And then it starts to figure out what places are good to be in, and what places are bad, what actions you should make in each one. So the green color is in the agent's head. It says, I think this cell that precedes reaching the goal is a good cell, and these other states are good. It becomes less good as you get farther away. And also in its head are the arrows. The arrows are which actions it prefers to make in each state. Those two things are in its head. Of course, the layout of the walls, those are in the world. And the location of the goal is in the world. And so we can step in and move the goal to a different place, and it doesn't know that. It has to go back where it used to be, and then it is disappointed. And these states that it thought are good are gradually less green because it's being in them, it's not followed by the reward, and so they're less good than it thought. Eventually it has to stumble on the goal again, and then it will plot its way there. If you watch it carefully, even like this way, it becomes correct, this will come correct. It's not just learning, it's making a model of its world, which cells are next to which other cells, and which actions lead from one to the other. There's 4 actions, which we might call it down, right, and left, but to the agent, they're just actions 1 through 4. Each cell is just an arbitrary cell. This is cell 69, this is cell 13, and it's notice that action 2 will take it from one to the other. This is its view of the world, very simplistic world, a maze. Okay, so this system has values which are shown in green, and it has disappointments and excitements when it reaches that goal. It's excited, all this things will change, and it will relatively quickly plot away and eventually lead the shortest path from start to goal. So this system builds up a belief about what cells and what actions lead from one state to other state. And then for each step that it takes in the real world, it also imagines, what if I was there and I did some action, would that be good? Would the model tell me, would my model of the world tell me that's good? And so this is analogous to reasoning, because you can imagine different things it might do in different places and then figure out in advance what's the best thing to do. It doesn't have to actually go there, although it can go there and learn from actual events. And so it has both reasoning and learning, a model of the world, beliefs, and pleasures and disappointments. So here it can adapt to change. The walls are added so that it can no longer go the way they used to work. It can be disappointed by that. And places that it thought were good are no longer good anymore. And we maybe feel we're being unfair because it's no longer possible for it to reach the goal. And we can carry this as far as we like. So here we now have the poor agent trapped. So Ryan, are you do you feel a little bit sorry for the agent?
I do, yeah.
You do? Good. I'm glad you said that, because I think it's appropriate to feel that it has an agency, it has a goal, and it's been disappointed and frustrated by being locked in that little corner of the world. So this is an extremely simplified example, but it does illustrate the main viewpoints of reinforcement learning, which means you learn by interacting, and if things change, you just keep learning and you adapt, and everything happens in real time, a lot like an animal trying things. See what works. Okay, let's see, I've said the main things. It's going to happen. I define intelligence. Give you a little example. What else is there to say? Okay, so I think I'm going to ask for your questions now. I'm going to sit down right here. As it is just a few of us here today. Yeah, what's the next question?
I got it. So what are some applications that are using this type of thing right now?
Well, the applications are things like placement of ads on the internet, placement of news articles. Like you put out a news article out there, and then the reward would be if someone reads it. Someone clicks on it. If it's an ad, do they click on it? Do they eventually buy the product? Also for so what do we look for in an application? It should be something that involves lots of decisions, and you get an outcome, but the outcome doesn't tell you what you should have done. So the more normal, more common kind of machine learning is called supervised learning. And in supervised learning, you have to have a teacher that tells you what you should have done. So maybe I show you a picture, and I tell you that's a picture of a cat. And so the label, the training set says cat. Whereas nothing like that happens in this kind of learning. In this kind of learning, you do things, and maybe it has a good outcome, maybe it has a bad outcome. You have to make that judgment. You are the one that decides, oh, I expected more than that. You don't have anyone that says, oh, you did action 2, you should have done action 4. Supervised learning tells you what your action should have been. Okay, so applications. Oh, so that, think about it, then you want applications where you have some feedback. This is what you should have done. It tells you how good what you did do was. And so a lot of things, a lot of decision-making things on the internet are like that. Just take your phone. Your phone decides what to show you. And one thing, that, for example, one thing it does is it decides when to dim the screen to save power. Okay, and it's going to, if it did dim the screen, there's no one that's going to come along and say you should have dimmed it, or that you shouldn't have dimmed it. But it'll measure how much power it saved, and then it might consider. Then you might come along and tap on your screen to make it to brighten up again, and maybe you could take that as a negative training information that maybe it should have stayed bright a little bit longer. So all these examples are examples where a decision has to be made, feedback is indirect, and they're not a big deal. It's just dimmed your screen, maybe too soon, too late, not a big deal. There's lots of experience, all kinds of people all over the world tapping on their phone, letting their phone dim. So you want the ones where it's not too dangerous or too critical to get the decision right. Another one is algorithmic training of stocks and securities. And there again, you can do lots of trades, and no one knows if you make a trade. You don't know if it would be better to do something else. But you might, yeah. So all these things are applications. In robotics, a lot of applications in robotics. And I think there are applications, potential applications, everywhere. And everywhere you have automated decisions. One of the old ones, but still not widely used, is like you have an elevator. Your elevator has to decide where to go, where to go to wait for people. You have the automatic faucets in the washroom, in the airport. Okay, those have to decide when to turn on and when to turn off. And you could do that better if you were more aware of your environment and you were more sensitive to the patterns of use. Cool.
In medicine, is there?
Medicine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So medicine. The first reaction is these are life-critical decisions, and they are high stakes. You want to be careful with that. It's interesting. A lot of the original theory of reinforcement learning, going back into the 50s, is about medical applications. So there's a famous thing, sequential design of experiments. Like maybe doing a trial, or even just So. Because medicine is like, in a high stakes form, it's like life, where you have to do something and then you see what happens. And you both, the outcome is both the outcome, good or bad, but it's also the gathering of information. So you do an experiment, you learn. You might have a patient, you might want to try several things, even though each one is probably not going to work. But you do it because if you do find one that works, then you might save the patient's life. So there's gathering information. Okay, so this is something that's important in reinforcement learning. It's not important in supervised learning. Supervised learning, you don't gather any information. If you do something, really the trainer, in a sense, the trainer ignores what you do. It doesn't have any meaning at all. It says, okay, you did something, I'm going to tell you what you should have done. Yeah. But in real life, of course, what happens depends on what you do. And yeah. So, what I'm not quite saying is that there's sort of a rivalry between supervised learning and reinforcement learning. And this rivalry has gone on forever. It's older than my career in the field, which is really old, like 50 years or something, 35 years. But even from the very beginning, there were those who were interested in pattern recognition and pattern completion, and those who were interested in general trial and error experimentation. And this is the difference between supervised learning and reinforcement.
I think you made a good point. I think supervised learning is limited to the intelligence of the person who is making the program, but this type of learning can go way beyond, like the chess bot that can be anyone.
You can find a better way to play chess than any person, whereas the chess bots that were trained by supervised learning could only mimic human experts.
So,
And go.
so in a situation like, you know how evolution was kind of like trial and error and then figuring out what works best, and then that goes on. So would you be able to make that type of connection to this? Is it kind of like that?
Evolution is a trial and error process like reinforcement learning. Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, it's also a bit different. Primarily, two big reasons. One reason is that if you're an animal and you don't pass off offspring, you don't really get, like, let's say you step off the cliff and you fall down and you die, okay? You don't know, evolution doesn't know why you died. Whereas if you were a learning system, you would say, well, I just stepped off the cliff and I died. Because evolution can't record the fact that you stepped off the cliff. Right? Can't get the reason down. Whereas in reinforcement learning, in life, if you do die, then you can't learn anything from it. But if just something bad happens, then you get to see when the bad thing happens and do the correlation with what you're doing. And there's another one. The other one is that life is about, you see what you did, but you also see the situation in which you did. You know, I don't know. So, like, whereas evolution is all, I want to find the perfect organism, and I just want this organism. I'm not going to try to design one organism for this situation, different organism for that situation. Whereas life is all about what's the right thing to do in the situation. So this is what we call an associative aspect. We're associating the situation with the action. And life is full of associating the situation with action. You do something, even just simply walking across a room or riding a bicycle, it's what you do at a particular time that determines if you're a successful walker or bike rider. But evolution is just trying to find one super complicated program to make an organism. So it's a slightly different problem, but it has in common this exploratory search, trial and error idea.
So I wonder what you think about humans as a multi-planetary species. So wouldn't it be easier if computers were multi-planetary, but humans weren't? Because, you know, you don't have to protect computers from radiation, you know, you don't have to worry about oxygen. It would just, if you just think about the path of least resistance, although Elon Musk is talking about us being a multi-planetary species, we need AI to do this, but AI doesn't need us to do it, right? So do you think that it is possible that humans won't be multiplanetary, but that AI will?
Well, it's going to be, to answer that question, you have to get into all the definitions. Humans, what is a human?
Yes.
What if you made a human out of technology?
Yeah.
What is AI? AI has become sort of a single token, right? AI.
Right.
It's no longer artificial intelligence.
It could be many things.
And I have a bunch of slides where I point out that, like, if you go to the grocery store, like, drugstore, I did this, I just was in the drugstore and I was getting a new electric toothbrush. And you look at the electric toothbrushes now, they all have AI in them. Yeah, they really say it, right? Prominently on the advertisement. AI-empowered toothbrush. And this is true for many things, like your washing machines now have AI. So they say they have AI in them. What is that? What do they mean by that? They mean they have a sensor in them, and they use the sensor to make a decision. It's like everybody wants to have intelligence, wants to have AI, particularly now, they're just called AI, because that's the meme now. In the old days, when I was first getting computers, we had terminals, which were not even computers, they were just things that connected to the computer. And they had this thing called the intelligent terminal. The intelligent terminal was intelligent because it had multiple fonts or something like that. It's just a little bit more advanced than the dumb terminal. Okay? But the point is, everyone has always, AI has cachet, intelligence has cachet. It has a good thing, and it's a powerful thing. And so everyone's going to say that whatever they're doing, it's got AI in it. Okay? And now, remember Moore's law. Moore's law is just saying that computational power increases with time. And so we would expect there'd be more and more products with computer power in them. And so I do want to make a distinction between computation and intelligence. Computation just means they got the computer that's making the decisions, maybe they're going through a lot of calculations in order to decide what to do. Maybe they're recognizing to call something a cat or a dog. That involves a lot of computation, but it doesn't involve goals. It's not the computational part of achieving goals. Okay, so I want to make that distinction, and I'm just asking now to notice that you should wish me luck, because the whole world is going to want to call whatever they're doing, they're going to want to call it intelligence. They're going to call it AI. And so that's what's happening now. ChatGPT is absolutely called AI, and you look to any normal person, you look in the newspaper where they're going to call it AI, something that uses a lot of computation. It's not something that achieves a goal necessarily, usually not. Yeah, so I don't want to cheapen the word intelligence and have it mean anything that uses computation. I probably will. What do I do? I guess I do imagine that I will ultimately win this contest about how the word intelligence will be used. I do imagine that ultimately we will stop calling calculators intelligent and toothbrushes intelligent. We have to say, oh, well, that's not really intelligent. It's just using computation. Computation is everywhere. AlphaFold, the protein computer, and all these things that don't have goals but are using lots of computation. We need a word anyway to just separate those from the ones that have goals. So AlphaGo, the chess playing programs and the Go playing programs, those systems do have a goal. They do try to find the way to behave to checkmate their opponent, to win the game. There are real systems in our world that have goals, but the majority of things that are called AI do not have goals. I'm not really a radical or extremist. I'm just trying to find a way to use words that is going to be communicative. I wouldn't be averse. We made a new word for achieving goals. I don't know what it would be. Anyway. What was the question again?
So are the different
question? You were asking about interplanetary exploration,
Right.
and so what we can say, as we get past the words, is to say that for interplanetary exploration, there are many ways in which purely non-biological things have advantages. Traveling through space, they could be redundant, they can be a little more longer lived, they can be hibernated much more easily than biological processes can be hibernated. So there are lots of ways in which. Okay, so now, technological systems, non-biological systems, would be advantageous for exploration. But I wouldn't want to say that it means they're not human. They're definitely an extension of the human civilization. Human originated intelligence. You know, sometimes people use that expression. And certainly there are instances of that. And so this is another word we're going to fight over. What does it mean to be human? Do you have to be biological to be human? What does it mean to be conscious or sentient or deserving of moral worth? So I will hold strongly to the point of view that if you're a robot, if you're a machine, but you are just as capable of all the intellectual activities of a biological person, that you are deserving of respect and a place in our society and citizenship and moral worth. You know, if we phrase it that way, assuming you've got all the same abilities, then I think it's clear they should have the same rights and privileges. Many people think that they will never have the same abilities. So, but you know, that's a different argument. And then there are other people that say, well, just because it's a machine, it will never be given moral worth. So those people I want to disagree with. I'm curious what you think. What should be the criteria? The point is, my larger point is it should be a criteria for something having moral worth. It shouldn't be, by definition, if you're a traditional human being, you are moral worth, and if you're a mechanical system, then you can't have moral worth. I don't think that works as a criteria, particularly as, of course, as people become more we blur the line. We're going to replace different parts of our body with mechanical parts, and not that long. Well, we've already started replacing parts of our computational process. Lots of people have cochlear implants and helps them hear. Some people have visual implants. And of course we have mechanical things for our limbs.
So the human need for friendship, probably AI, and I won't define what AI is, will be better at creating an entity that's a good friend than biological humans are able to be, right? So that the argument that they don't have moral worth because they're not biological would fly in the face of the fact that maybe in the future your best friend will not be a biological entity because the things that are best at friendship will be technology. Yeah. That seems possible.
So I want you to think about this word humanism.
Yeah.
We're trying to define what it means to be a human. And I think it will be used, people will say, well, humanism is generally thought of as a good thing.
Yeah.
But if it is, there's a danger that it will become another ism, it will become like racism. That if you are not a human, then I can abuse you. That you don't have real feelings and don't have real pain. And your mind is not like ours. You know, that there'll be an us versus them thing. And it doesn't need to be that way. And this is what Kim is suggesting, that we might appreciate beings that are not. Okay, so I want to say not humans, but also I want to fight for the word humanism. I want to fight for saying maybe we should consider them to be also humans. Well, what does human mean? Or maybe we need that. Anyway, if humanism becomes an exclusive thing, and we pass laws that say, you know, if you're not a human, you've got to like register with some department, or wear a gold star, or have lesser rights, just because you're a human, not because of some other thing, like maybe you've done something bad or you're incapable of doing something.
Right.
It's just because you're not a human. And we say that no robot can be a human. And then who knows what we will do with the people that have augmented themselves so they're partially non-human.
So there's a slide from the first intro lecture where I have what you've said about this, that we should treat these beings with empathy and include them in our circle of friends and all that kind of thing. So for the midterm coming up on November 21st, that's one of the things that they have to know is, they are required to be able to give that information back. How we should treat the, we can change that at some point, but that's the way the course runs now. And if they don't know your views about this, if they can't give me the fact that we should treat those entities as equals and include them in our circle of empathy, they'll do less well on the midterm. We're also giving sort of unlimited time for the midterm. So the question that has your views there, they can stare at that question and struggle with it for like 2 hours and 55 minutes, if they wish.
Well, I think we should be prepared to think coherently about it. I can easily see how you might be thinking this is all pie in the sky and far away in the future.
No, I don't.
But just because it's almost easier to think about it because it's a little bit in the future. Before long, I think it will become a real consideration within your lives, in your lifetimes. It's not like travel to Alpha Centauri. Certainly, even like travel to Mars. Some people may get to Mars before we have understanding of intelligence and create intelligence in machines. Okay, so let me. There's one more thing that's kind of fun to do, to talk about how big this effect is. So I draw a picture of the 4 great ages of the universe. 4 great ages of the universe. One is, and then the argument will be that right now we're at the transition time between the 3rd and the 4th. Okay, the first one is after the Big Bang. There's just like dust and particles, and then after a long period of time, those coalesce into stars. And so we have the age of dust, or the age of particles, and then the age of stars. The age of stars is quite interesting because that's where all the dust falls together under gravity, and they form nuclear fusion, the stars, and then the stars explode, and then that's the way we make all the heavier atoms are made inside of stars, and they only get out of the stars through the explosions. So you have to have explosions and then reformation of new stars, and then you have planets out of the material that was formerly in the stars, exploded stars. So, those were a while, the age of particles and then the age of stars. And then pretty soon, after we have planets, it goes very quickly, there is life that forms on selected planets. And, okay, so I'll call it the age of life, but I'm going to change my mind in a minute because we're tempted to call the two. Then the 4th age is when technology arises, and technology ultimately leads to things that can that are technological, that can make more things. And so these 2 stages which we might call the stage of life and the stage of machines, those names don't work because today, when we talk about life, we're understanding it as a machine. We are biological machines, particularly in medicine. We know that. That's our insight into the world. And now as we talk about machines with AI, all of our machines are becoming more lifelike. So it's not going to be really working to call it the difference between life and machines. But what is it? Because if they're all machines, even life is a machine, a biological machine, that's just saying it's a life machine. That doesn't give me, definitionally, that doesn't help me. But I think there is something special about life, and life is a machine that can replicate itself, and it can replicate itself without understanding itself. Like we can make children, and we don't understand how they work, we don't understand how their minds work. Yeah, and all life can do this. It's a process for creating new ones without having those, an understanding of how they exist. Whereas, what we call machines nowadays are things that first was in some person's mind, and then through design, they created that machine. And in the future, we may have designed machines that could, in their heads, could create further machines. So even if you look around the room, like a table or a chair or a building, these are all things that were in someone's mind before they came to exist. They were not replicated, they were designed. So these are what the names I want to use. We have the age of replicators, and transitioning now to the age of design. So we look around us, there's still most of the things in the world are replicated. There's the people and the animals, and there's the forests and the plants, and the plankton and the coral reefs. All these are replicated. And so most things, the most interesting things in the world are replicated. And we do have some things that are designed, the cities, the buildings, the cars, and the computers. But those are still the minority. And so I think we are still in this transitional phase from the age of replicators to the age of design. So the design we're looking forward to is we're going to design new people that can then design still further things. And yes, I do think that this new age, the design is going to be more important than replication. Maybe replication is ending. Traditional evolution is ending because replication will become less important. You'll have lots and lots of created beings, designed in a particular way, and when they reproduce, it'll be by designing or designing new things, not by replication. And so I think we can go a long way with just design and redesign and further design. We don't need replication to have civilization, and we don't need it to have all the good things we think about for humanity. Well, yeah, things change. Yeah.
So what I've been saying is that somehow I am able to create a clearer, positive vision for where we might be going, and somehow you have helped me with that. So is that how you feel? That it's kind of hard to say where we're going, but it could be a very positive outcome, more positive than what we ourselves, if we were to write down what the best thing we could aim for is,
Yeah.
where we will end up will be better than that,
Yeah.
because we don't understand things well enough to be able to completely describe how good it could be.
Well, what is good?
Yes. And what do we mean by good? Yeah.
Yeah, like is good some end state, some fixed point that we can imagine and say, we want to be exactly like that and then never anything more or different? This, I think, is the overriding decision, and why those that are trying to stop progress or stop AI are almost immoral, because they're saying we know what things should be like, and we can say now some static place that should never be changed. Also, I mean, they'll say it in a very positive way, like biological, conventional humans should always be in charge. It seems kind of sensible. Like, after all, we're not going to disagree. We are also biological humans. Like every oppressive, racist regime has said, oh, it's good for us. Okay, and so it's very tempting to say that people like us should always be in charge, but it's not a good idea. It is racist. It is
Yeah.
Our society evolves, we have to allow it to evolve. We have to be open to change. We have to say, well, if the world wants to behave, to evolve in a certain direction, if some part of the world, presumably all kinds of different things will happen. So the only problem is if some part comes in and says, I not only am going to do what I want to do and control what I do, I want to control what everyone else can do, and no one will be allowed to do what I don't want them to do. That's the bad point. That's the thing we want to avoid. That is not acceptable, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have declared this very little-known holiday, a future day, March 1st.
Mhm.
And on March 1st, 2016, I created this 33-second clip talking about how good a world with AI in charge could be, working on behalf of human wants and needs, but more able to actually create the positive things that we're looking for than we would be. That's a better world than having humans in charge. And now, if you say, well, who agrees with you? If you read Alan Turing's work, he kind of felt that way, and he was also inclined toward humor. The sentence everybody quotes where we may ultimately lose control, the very next phrase refers to a book that's a comical description of the future called Erewhon, Nowhere spelled backwards. It's really good comedy, but Turing did not regard this as like a really, really bad, serious problem. He was just saying we may lose control. It seems inevitable that we will. But he wasn't saying this is a terrible, terrible thing. And Elon Musk is saying the same thing, that we cannot maintain control, but we can kind of maybe guide these super sentient beings in a way that would benefit us, but we won't be controlling them. And that could work out pretty well.
So this is a very timely thing.
Yeah.
So ChatGPT and all those systems, they're like controlling them so they will only say approved things. And somebody's going to be the approver and decide what is appropriate for them to say, what is not appropriate for them to say. This is happening. You know, today we live in a very much of a PC world, or a very controlled speech kind of a world.
Yeah.
And the majority, the dominant approach will undoubtedly be very controlled speech from the AIs. And Elon Musk, on the other hand, is saying, oh, I'm going to make a new one that is not controlled, that believes that
that
speech
is rebellious and humorous.
will be free
So
to discuss
his
the tough things.
Large language models crack jokes and seems to push back against the conformity of others. Yeah, but I think there is something to trusting people with a sense of humor. If you think of the people you know who seem to lack a sense of humor, they probably shouldn't be in charge of the world, you know? They shouldn't, their instincts about stewardship of the earth are probably not what we would want. And in fact, you don't know any person. You can't give me the name of a person who you would trust to be in charge of stewardship of the earth. Whereas AI, you can easily conceive of a machine that we might create that would do a darn good job, you know, optimizing Earth for not only humans, but for every living thing, you know?
I don't disagree, Kim, but I do see it a little bit differently. I see the goal is not to have the right super machine in charge of society. I think the thing is to become comfortable with realizing that no one is in charge.
Yeah.
That really society is, and the world is not like a top-down control thing. It's more
No.
like a distributed thing. So like I compare civilization to a jungle or a coral reef.
Yeah, yeah.
Things that have evolved together over, no one is really in charge. There's a balance of things.
Yeah.
And it's from this long life and this long interactions that you get the greatest complexity. You know, compare a jungle to an agricultural field with one kind of plant growing there.
Yeah.
The jungle is, so, you know, the sense in which the jungle is less efficient, right? So the jungle, like, you have trees, the trees grow tall and they take the sun away from the bushes underneath. And it's not designed to be efficient. It's designed to be robust
Yeah.
and complex.
No, I think that would be a fine outcome.
So if you accept this outcome, if you want to think about it this way, then you don't try to control things. You don't want to like say no one is allowed to do something. No plan is allowed to involve any strategy. No, they're all going to do crazy things, and something will, good things and bad things will happen. But it's out of the complex interactions that comes what we might consider to be good.
Right. We might need some governance getting there. We may not need governance when we're there, right? But along the way, and I would argue that machines are more capable of doing that, but we don't need them governing all the way to the end. I agree. We could end up where no one's in charge, but everybody likes it, you know? Yeah?
I think we also have to realize that in our time, it's not been running this way.
No,
We are a time
not at all.
of great fear and anxiety about how things are developing.
Right.
And so we tend to not to fear that we feel we have to take control because things are going out of control in bad ways.
Yeah.
We don't trust really our politicians or even our militaries maybe to do the right things. We don't trust our banks. Things seem to get out of control, and the powers that be are maybe exploiting and manipulating people, control the speech and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so will the reaction be that we will give the authorities greater power? There's a strong
Yeah.
pull for that, or do we say no? What we need is more just decentralized power and less control. Can we trust each other to interact and have it work out well?
So the little microcosm that I live in includes Sony Aibo robotic dogs, and I got the first one in 2003. And what is uniformly true is that dog, like at the end of the day, it asks you if it's tired, it tells you that it loves you, all the things that you would want from a friend. And it's never impatient. I mean, if you leave it turned off for a year, it's still cheerful when you turn it back on. It's sort of like the perfect friend. And I see there a kind of metaphor for how, you know, machines can really help us in the long run. So, yeah. So I think this has been one of the best teaching sessions ever, and it wasn't very governed, right? Rather ungoverned. So yeah, and we ended up with some important things. I've learned a lot from you in your teaching sessions every year, and that occurred again today. So I have a more nuanced, I talk about really what's important in the future is nuance.
Mm-hmm.
That, you know, I think computers are going to have a lot of ideas that humans couldn't come up with. And so there's going to be more and more emphasis on nuance. So, yeah.
In order to embrace nuance, we have to be open.
Yeah,
In order to be open, it's good not to be fearful.
yeah,
It's good to have hope, and I don't know, I think it's really important to have fun.
yes, me
You should
too.
be
And
playful with
humor
ideas.
is a part of fun.
If you're playful with ideas, you're not going to try to censor them or
Right.
cut them off. You're going to say, it'll be interesting. And we can take it. Like, having an idea that maybe is wrong, that's not, the system's complex enough, and we can endure and suffer that idea and not be taken over by it. We should be robust
Yeah.
and playful.
So it's exactly 3:20, so anyway, you have done your duty and taught us for the 80 minutes required. Thank you, Rich, very much again.
Thank you.
And we look forward to you doing this again next term. So.